Hi, I'm Mimi Lichtenstein, and today I'm super excited to be here with you and my partner Sarah Farag from Southern Crossings in New Zealand. We're on opposite sides of the world, which is why we're doing it a little bit later this afternoon. And I just am excited to talk about New Zealand because it's one of my favorite places, and I'm excited to have Sarah because she knows so many great details about it. So Sarah, could you give us a little bit about your background?
Sure, Mimi. Lovely to be here, and thanks so much for having me on board. Southern Crossings has been in business. We're coming up to our 35th year. So we've been here for a long time, curating travel to New Zealand. In that time, we've never repeated an itinerary. So, Mimi, it's all about hearing what your travellers are interested in, and then we explore the country and start with a clean sheet of paper and design it from scratch. So it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it for a long time. I'm the principal owner of the New Zealand side of the business, and we have a sister company over in Australia, and Stuart Rigg is the principal owner over there.
And my understanding is, obviously, you grew up in New Zealand. You have a lovely Kiwi accent. Your parents were sort of like globetrotters, and so you traveled all around the world. So it's been in your blood since you were a wee little child.
That's exactly right. So my father's actually from the UK. My mother is a Kiwi as far back as the original colonial settlers who ventured on their boats from Europe and settled here. So a great history on one side of the family is a true blue Kiwi. In fact, you can read about my ancestors in a museum down in Rotorua, in the centre of the North Island. And yeah, so it's definitely in my blood. And I guess with the father from the UK, we did get to explore the world quite frequently as a family and as children. And that really instilled a passion in me to show off New Zealand, because everywhere I went, I was so moved by the experiences, but it just made me passionate about what we have here in our country and wanting to share that with the world too.
Well, I think why I think you're so lucky to be from New Zealand is it's everything that I want in a place, right? It's active, it's adventurous, it's safe, it's full of amazing people, the wildlife is there, the scenery is spectacular. So you're super lucky that that has happened to be where you were, sort of born and raised and where you've made your life. So I'm excited to dive into it with you today. Do you want to maybe give us an overview, start with a map, or, kind of tell us a little bit about how it's divided? I know North Island, South Island are two big, I guess, markers that people use to which places they want to go.
Yeah, makes it pretty simple just talking about a North Island and a South Island, but I'll take you through it, and hopefully this is going to click and move on. Let's see. There we are. So from the US, if we talk about that, it is there are direct flights from Los Angeles into Auckland, and typically also from San Francisco, Houston. Chicago was another hub, and Air New Zealand have invested in planes to make New York a hub too. And whilst that didn't quite get off the ground, it is going to be on their forecast for when we open up. So we're super excited about that too. So we're really linking the US to New Zealand very easily. We say it is your first night's accommodation, dinner, couple of movies, breakfast, and you're here. So very simple, and it is an overnight flight. So if you lose a day coming down here, but you gain that on the return. So if you leave the US on the 10th of March, you would arrive in Auckland on the 12th. And if you depart New Zealand,
normally that's not such a big deal, but actually you might remember the clients that I had who were supposed to be coming just this last Christmas. The big deal was they were coming from Bora Bora, and it was around Christmas time. And so if they left on one day, they literally would have skipped Christmas. By the time they arrived in New Zealand, it would have been over. So it was a lot of logistics trying to figure out exactly when they had to leave so they wouldn't miss Christmas.
Yes, you do want to take things like, you don't want to miss a birthday or an anniversary or anything up in the sky. But you can also time it on the return, because if you leave here on the 20th of November, for example, you return on the 20th. So you do feel like you gain it on the return. So
So
it's
you
not
could
too
celebrate
easy.
Christmas twice if you did it
You
that way, or
could.
a birthday.
I had my 10th birthday twice going
Oh,
around the world on the opposite direction. I'll never forget
that's a
that.
great story. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was with Air New Zealand in the days where they used to give you a cake on board and you handed it round to share with all the other passengers on board the flight. So, these days you get some sweets and you get some very nice wine and good food on board. So it's a nice little gentle introduction to coming down to New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay, well, so what's the, oh, perfect. I want to hear about the seasonality, and then I'd love to even get your perspective on kind of what's the difference overall, big picture, from the North Island versus the South Island.
Exactly, and that's a really good link into climate as well, because New Zealand it really is a year-round destination, but the winter months, which are your summer months, June, July, August, are cooler. Definitely, and that's our ski season down south. But the way we hang as a country, up in the far north, the Bay of Islands, it's nicknamed the Winterless North. So it's super temperate in the North Island. I live in Auckland, the gateway city. It never snows here. So it is pretty mild year-round. But down south, it's cooler days, crisp, clear skies, and great skiing weather. So that's where we have our skiing. June, July, August, if you did come down at that time of the year, and some people like to escape the intense heat of summer, it's a beautiful time of year. In fact, it's the best time to be in Fiji. So you can combine some ski and sun, or equally ski in New Zealand, or just a little sort of less touring time in New Zealand, and join up with the Northern Territories of Australia, which are only open at that time of the year. So you would mix your travels a little differently at that time. December, January, February is our peak summer months. And when we say it's crowded, you need to remember that New Zealand is the size of California and we have 5 million people living here. So when we add tourists, it's still very sparsely populated. We just consider it to be busy. So it's still it's a great time. You just need to plan your trip well in advance if you want to come over festive, because the lodges and the properties do get booked out well in advance. Mm-hmm. You can see that a year out. Some of your favorites will be blocked out. So you do want to get in early. My favorite times, though, are March, April, May. Beautiful late summer weather. It's very settled. Typically, you can expect rain year-round in New Zealand, but it really is an idyllic time to come. And equally, September, October, November, if you want to see the mountains still with snow on them, the fields lush and green, and little lambs, spring lambs, and the gardens at their peak, you can expect a little more rain in our spring, but it is absolutely picturesque. So it's really a beautiful time to come. I was going to just tell you, Mimi, about a few little places in Auckland, and I'm not going to do many of our hotels because New Zealand really is about getting into the countryside. It always has been. But Auckland has now got some really fun places to stay. In the top left-hand corner, we've got the Park Hyatt. I'm thinking that's on your left, which is in a marina setting. And that's really, we've been waiting a while for the Park Hyatt to get to Auckland, and it is a fabulous 5-star hotel option. But equally, did you want to ask about that?
Yeah. Well, so just out of curiosity, how does the Park Hyatt compare with the hotel? Is it Britomart?
Hotel Britomart, absolutely. Yeah. And that's in my bottom left-hand corner. Hotel Britomart is smaller, it's more boutique. It is New Zealand's first 5-star green hotel. And one of the green star ratings is because everything that has been used there in the build is repurposed. It's beautifully designed. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you've got an eye for architecture and design, it's stunning and pleasing. But the rooms are very compact, so it's using space very cleverly, which is of course part of its green star rating. that space is a luxury when it's in a city, suburb, so you want to use it mindfully and not wastefully, and that's part of their design. There are 5 landing suites, however, of which we can see one, which are beautifully spacious, and that just allows you, for an ultra-luxe client, to equally stay in comfort and in this beautiful location. The Park Hyatt is a larger hotel and does have more amenities, such as a swimming pool and a gymnasium, and it's in a more marina setting, as opposed to the Hotel Britomart, which is in a Britomart precinct, which has got vibrant little bars and cafes and restaurants on its doorstep. So different settings.
Would you say that they're both good for families, like with either sort of middle grade kids or teenagers?
They are. I would say that perhaps the Park Hyatt might lend itself a little bit more to families, and the Hotel Britomart more to couples and sort of honeymoon plus, but more couples or couples traveling together. And then we've got the QT Hotel on the right there, and that's got a fun rooftop bar. The Park Hyatt will also have a rooftop bar in due course. So that is a little bit more young and funky, I guess. But the rooms are a little dark, but they're also beautifully appointed. I think that's a younger clientele typically.
Good to know. I love a good rooftop bar. I love a good swim-up bar, swim-up pool bar, and a rooftop bar. So.
Right. Well, the swim-up pool bar we don't have, but you can enjoy the rooftop bar, and there's usually a DJ playing, and it's got a nice vibe to it.
So fun.
Good. So I thought I would take you north to south. We do hang a little bit like Italy, really, but in the South Pacific. So the nearest destination to New Zealand is a 3-hour flight away, and that is Australia or Fiji. But if we go north to south, it does hang with beautiful sort of that mild climate up in the north. And then, like I said, the sort of cooler, more diverse climate in the south. But beyond climate, it's also the scenery that is so different as we travel through.
And you know what, when I've seen, because I've, since I was last there's so many more spectacular hotels, or at least I couldn't afford them when I was out of college, so I wasn't staying at them anyway. But they're so diverse. The architecture is so beautiful. Many of them blend in with the natural landscape or built out of stone or glass. And I mean, the variety of architectures is just incredible.
It's actually really exciting because it is so different. And I think that's really climate based. So we do have, big glass windows up in the north typically, and less so as you go further south because it's cooler and hotter in summer, just a drier temperature. So, and also New Zealand has been dubbed the world in one little piece, California-sized piece of land. So you will see as you travel through, people will say, this reminds me of any country in the world, but actually, just as your first photo we saw, Mimi, before this presentation, I said, well, that could be a coastline anywhere in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And it may not be New Zealand at all. But up here in the north, this particular property is called The Landing, and it is the sister property to Hotel Britomart. So Peter Cooper built these beautiful residences, and this one that we see is his called the Cooper Residence, and it has 5 bedrooms, and it's in a commanding position. This is 1,000 acres of gated private land that is overlooking the pristine Bay of Islands. The other residences is a 2-bedroom boathouse, the 4-bedroom Gabriel Villa, and a little 3-bedroom vineyard villa. And on the property, they are bottling and growing their own wines, which are absolutely superb.
And so if you're staying up here at the sort of top of the North Island, what are some of the adventures that you can go on that differ from the South Island? Oh,
well, New Zealand and helicopters go hand in hand, and you can really do those everywhere. But a bit of a fun thing to do here is to take a helicopter and land on top of one of these little islands. This one is called the Hole in the Rock because boats can cruise underneath it. It literally has a big hole underneath it.
Wow.
But the Bay of Islands area is also the birthplace of New Zealand. It was the original capital city was up here. It is where the Treaty of Waitangi was signed. So it's where New Zealand was colonised in 1840. And landing here with a Maori guide to tell you about the birthplace of New Zealand is quite a rich place to start your travels and your journey through the country. So that's a fun activity for sure. Equally, you can get on board a boat, and the landing has this beautiful vessel called Atarangi, and you can go deep sea fishing off it. Of course, you can go snorkeling, diving, kayaking, you name it, but you can equally just go picnicking on these beautiful islands. There are 144 in the Bay of Islands to explore. So for sailing, boating, and just lots of beach activities, it's a paradise.
Looks like it.
As we come further south in the North Island, we've got the centre of New Zealand, which is quite well known, the Rotorua and Taupo region. Rotorua is really where tourism began in New Zealand, and people went there for the thermal healing pools. So a lot of our colonial and Indigenous heritage is here, and this is a New Zealand living Maori village, Ohinimutu, and to have just a 1-hour tour here privately, the Maori carvings on this building tell a beautiful story, and they're the finest example of Maori carvings. So that sets the tone for the region. And the region is bubbling, boiling geysers and mud pools. It is quite a bit like your Yellowstone.
I went there when I first went to Australia, and I loved it. It was so beautiful. Okay, I love this picture when you sent it to me the other day, because my teenagers, of course, would be like, let me in there.
My boys have done it. I have not. I took the photographs. Look, I was a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to extreme adventures, and I consider this on that spectrum. New Zealand is the home of the bungee jump, because we think it's fine to jump off a bridge with a bungee cord attached to your legs and
so Sarah, I did do that with AJ Hackett. I did go bungee jumping one time. I will never do it again. It was terrifying, but I understand the appeal.
You're one time braver than me. I've done the bungee swing, and that was the benchmark for me. But that was also very exhilarating. But if you want to be strapped up when you released rather than having to do the jump, the bungee swing is the way to go. So the zorbing here is another kiwi invention, and that's quite literally rolling down a hillside in a giant inflatable ball. And if you want to add something fun to it, they can put water inside and you can slip slide as you go. Which is, of course, the choice that my boys took.
And just out of curiosity, how old do you have to be to do that? Maybe like 10?
Well, yes, my youngest did it when he was, you can be younger when you are sliding around in it, and I believe he was 8 actually at the time.
Wow.
So a bit older when it's a dry or zorb. But yeah, I leave it to you, but they also take into account your size as well. So that does factor in a little bit.
Beautiful.
So, let's see what else we have. Oh, okay. Just small technology.
Technology's never perfect. We're patient with that.
Not sure why that's not skipping on.
Maybe is your I mean, if you want here, I'll take yours down for a second. I'm going to pull mine up.
Okay.
There you go. And you could try and do something with it. Oh, this is my New Zealand map, but I had some pictures that I wanted to show of some places that I love. You know probably better than me where this is.
I sure do. I happen to have stayed in one of those beautiful glass pods. That's at the Lindis. So you've jumped down to the South Island here.
Yeah.
This is located, it's a beautiful lodge property located about 2.5 hours drive north of Queenstown, and about 4.5 hours drive south of Christchurch. So quite central in the lower South Island. It is a dark sky reserve. So one of the reasons they've built these 3 little glass pods is so that at nighttime you can see the stars and really feel that they sort of envelop you. It is absolutely beautiful. It borders on a dark sky reserve, so it's absolutely fantastic.
Stunning. And on top of it, obviously the architecture of this looks nothing like the architecture of the Lindis Lodge, which is also spectacular, but very round and curvy with the hillside, right?
Exactly. A little like Sapphire in Tasmania. It blends in harmoniously. In fact, I know that helicopter pilots will tell you that the first time they ever landed there, they had to really look to find out where on earth the lodge was, so they didn't land on top of it. So it is built beautifully harmoniously with the landscape. The main lodge has 5 suites inside. And people will tell you it looks like Patagonia. There's a beautiful fly fishing river right in front of the doorstep, which is National Geographic has rated. It's one of the top 10 in the world. So great for fly fishing.
I think you have a lot of top 10s in the world there, I feel like, whether it be luxury lodges, rivers, helicopter places, adventures.
Golf courses, you name it. Yeah.
Well, and so tell me, I know I had mentioned ahead of time, I think in my post, a lot of people consider Queenstown to be the adventure capital of the world. And
Correct.
I have a couple other pictures that might give some people, a little bit of a glimpse as to why it might have that name. For example, this cool boat experience. Where is this one?
This one's actually on the Waikato River at Taupo.
Okay.
But this one is down south. So we will jet boat on most rivers in New Zealand. And the most exhilarating is probably the shot over jet that you can see right here.
Okay.
And it's a 25-minute thrill-seeking, spins at high speed, skirting alongside these rocky cliff edges. It's very exhilarating and fun.
It looks like it. But then I feel like... Say that again?
You can do ones that are not sedate. They're still, you've got to travel at speed on a jet boat just to get, on top of the water. But you can do ones that are less, perhaps, thrill-seeking, not as many 360s, but you access beautiful terrain. And
the normal yachts that we saw earlier, those are available too for the people who don't want to do the crazy stuff. But then you could take it up one more notch by doing this.
Oh, exactly. And this is on Lake Wakatipu in Queenstown. And this is called, the shark boat that is extraordinary when you see it because you are looking at a lake. So it is a bit of an interesting experience to watch it. And it will literally take you underwater and then propel you straight outside of it. So it is a fun thing to watch. Again, of course, it's something that I've watched, not done myself, but it is for those adrenaline seekers. Yeah, a friend of mine's brother invented that crazy thing. So another Kiwi invention.
I wonder if you have to be under 30 years old to get on one of these.
I think so. Exactly. It's got a ceiling, this one, for age restriction.
I mean, it's just I love that Kiwis come up with these crazy ideas because who thinks of stuff like this? I don't even think this is available in the United States that I know of. Maybe it is, but I've never seen it.
Maybe it is. That I'm not too sure of, but yeah.
Well, I think as far as adventurous experiences go, that's a good one. And then I remember one of my vivid memories, other than bungee jumping, of this trip was driving down the highway going south from Auckland and just seeing white round, little puffs off in the distance. And truly at the beginning, I don't know why I didn't realize it, but they were sheep, which we realized as we got closer. Just hills and hills of beautiful green with just little white puffs everywhere. The lamb is obviously spectacular. And wool, New Zealand wool is a super prized thing as far as getting some sort of item to bring home from your trip, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, there are more sheep than people here, which is not hard. There's only 5 million people. But in fact, our very first brochure had just a group of sheep on a road because one of our typical roadblocks is when a farmer, and especially in a remote, rural area where the farmer moves the sheep from one field to the next, and you will just be, you will have to wait for the sheep to cross the road first and before you get through. But shearing sheep and watching that, it's such a skill. And of course, the lanolin that you get in it is so good for your skin, and our wool products are fabulous.
I mean, I think that for people who are interested, actually, can you shear, like, can you help the farmer shear sheep, or how does that work?
Not really. It is quite a skill. The farmers have to be really strong and hold the sheep in a specific way. Once they've got them in the right hold, they don't move, but they're very timid. They're not actually, unless you've raised them from scratch. What's the background noise there, Mimi? Oh,
What? Yeah.
no, unless you raise them from scratch, they're not very human friendly. They're very scared. So it's best left to the professionals, and watching them share them is quite an art.
It is. Well, I think, you know, for people who love animals, I know another one of the pictures I had up is this one, because I think, you know, for people who love wildlife, whenever you go places, it's always nice to be able to find different ways to see them. And that cute little kiwi bird is just adorable.
Exactly. So you can, you know, see there are places where you can go and have kiwi encounters. Certainly in the wild in Stewart Island, you can go down there and you'll see them. You can go kiwi spotting at night and see them on the beach. Up in the Bay of Islands, the first place I showed you, the landing, they have reintroduced with so much native planting. They've got kiwis back there, and you can go kiwi spotting at night on their private property.
Oh,
and
really?
When we went, we saw 5, and they said that was very few to see, but they are just bumbling around at night. They are nocturnal, so you do need to see them at night. Although there is one place where the farm at Cape Kidnappers in the Hawke's Bay, which I was getting to after the zorbing, and my screen froze. And here you can go with the Department of Conservation Ranger and learn about how at the farm at Cape Kidnappers they have set up this ambitious project. There's a 6,000-acre property that is fenced by a predator-proof fence, so keeping out stoats and introduced species that are not so great for our flightless little kiwi bird.
Okay.
And then you go and do a little weigh and check how the little chicks are doing as they're protecting them there before they're released into the wild. So that's an up close and personal encounter, but you do need to be staying at the farm at Cape Kidnappers to experience that.
And I mean, I don't know if you have a top list of, you know, your 5 favorite amazing places to stay, because I think there's just too many gorgeous ones to be able to do that. But I'd love if you tell us a little bit more about Cape Kidnappers, because I know that is a super popular one. And I actually think I might have found your presentation on my computer, so I'll pull that up if I can.
Oh, great. Call that amongst my top 5, I really would. And that is... It is spectacular. It is on a working sheep station. The view and the scenery, it's clifftop coastal, beautiful, and you have got beautiful native birds, the kiwi as one, as well as they've got all sorts of beautiful native birds in a sanctuary at the property.
And
oh, well done, Mimi.
And it's
more technically.
I'll keep you going from here. So I think you have a picture of Cape Kidnappers in here, don't you?
I do. And before you get there, Huka Lodge was just one of those other beautiful lodge places that is in the center of the North Island and overlooking the Waikato River. So as you can see, beautiful river that is completely bush fringed, and that is the center of the North Island for you.
And do you know what I love about Huka? So my clients who were going to come to New Zealand, they were actually replicating their honeymoon, but with their 2 teenagers, to celebrate their 20th anniversary, which I think is a super generous thing to do, Bora Bora and then New Zealand. And they actually stayed at Huka on their honeymoon years ago. And so they were coming back. And what I loved learning about Huka, not only is the fly fishing ridiculously amazing and the hiking and, you know, the style of the rooms, and they're all very different, but also they'll set up meals for you. I don't know, 50 plus different places around the property. Like you pick out a little place and they'll serve you breakfast there, or have a picnic dinner down by the river. And that
They've
just
got a
must be so
huge
special.
variety of places to dine privately. Huka Lodge actually was the original luxury lodge of New Zealand. Stemmed from fly fishing, because New Zealand originally was homestays, farm stays, and fly fishing lodges, and that's how it all began here. And so when we started crafting itineraries at the very beginning, Huka Lodge really was where you had to end, because it was the pinnacle of accommodation. We're now spoilt with luxury from tip to toe, but certainly Huka Lodge has kept its game, and it is wonderful. And yes, fly fishing is a fabulous activity here. From the days of communal dining, they now have a myriad of private dining options.
Yeah, it's perfect. And just look at the view that you have from sitting right there. It's just stunning.
That's right. Yeah. So, and the Taupo region really lends itself to amazing activities. That's looking at Lake Taupo, which is our largest lake, and it's the size of Singapore, in fact. And you can do beautiful hikes or mountain biking around the lake, and then get on board, trawl for trout, take your trout back to somewhere like Huka Lodge, and they'll cook it for dinner.
And we did that on our honeymoon in Bora Bora. Actually, went out one day and caught some tuna and mahi, and they made it for us for dinner too. That's a fun thing to do.
Fun, yeah. So this is Cape Kidnappers that we were talking about earlier, and it is an extraordinary. That's looking at the main lodge property. What you can't see is in front of you, right at the coastline, is a spectacular golf course. And what I do love about that is it's so in the distance that it doesn't really matter if you're a golfer or not. It is a spectacular property to stay at for anyone, and it suits everyone from families to honeymooners to couples. It really, there's not many people who would not be happy at the farm at Cape Kidnappers.
No complaints if you're looking at that view, that's for sure.
Exactly. And the Hawke's Bay region is wonderful. There's a myriad of vineyards in the area, and these beautiful soft limestone trails, which are great for cycling. So you can go cycling and sipping wine, which for me is a perfect little day trip.
Combo. As long as somebody will bring me home just in case I need it.
And a support vehicle to pick you up at the other end.
Okay, this is another reason I love New Zealand is one of the things I have on my list of fun things when I'm planning family adventures is unconventional accommodation. And I feel like tree houses and glass pods fit that perfectly, along with glamping. So tell us about these tree houses.
Exactly. So, you know, this isn't at the same level of the Landing, Huka Lodge or Cape Kidnappers, but we have this other layer of, properties that are still really beautifully done. This is an eco lodge called Hapuku Lodge, which is has treehouse style accommodation, 1 and 2 bedroom, and it's on the South Island as you go on the east coast, so north of Christchurch, and it really it's Kaikoura means food and crayfish. So it is abundant in seafood and crayfish along this coast, which also taps into a lot of marine life as well. So it is spectacular. We've got the mountains on one side and the sea on the other.
Well, you could just see those people up there on that balcony staring out off at the distance. I'm sure at a gorgeous view.
That's exactly right. And this is, the sperm whale reside here year round. So you can go and do, you can either fly over the sperm whales or go out on a cruise. But for those who are a bit more adventurous, you can go swimming with the dolphin or swimming with seals, and you can go kayaking amongst them as well. So
these are wild
adventures. These are wild. These are the dusky dolphin reside here year round. They're incredibly playful, and that's everything. We don't have any enclosed encounters for our marine life. So it is about getting into the wild.
And just out of curiosity, I know in Costa Rica, I'm surprised a Kiwi didn't invent this, but on a lot of yachts, one of the toys is a sea bob. And in Costa Rica, when I had on offer, we talked about sea bobbing with a pod of dolphins off the coast. Do you guys have sea bobs where you are?
No, I don't believe so. Although I look and see we might have a New Zealand version of that. But kayaking is a really popular activity for people who want to get out on the water and maybe not in it. So that's a fun activity.
Beautiful. I mean, just so beautiful.
So this is another fabulous lodge property that I particularly love, and I think it's really because it harks to our colonial heritage, and it is the finest restored building, colonial building in New Zealand, and it's so steeped in history. There are 7 suites at Otahuna Lodge. It's just 20 to 30 minutes drive south of Christchurch, and the garden is one of national significance. So if you're a garden lover, the grounds are absolutely spectacular. And the rooms are immaculate, and the food and the wine story here is absolutely intriguing and beautiful. You can do amazing cooking classes, and Jimmy makes you feel like you're a master chef yourself. But I think he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. But it's a fantastic place to reside. A lot of people call me and say, I feel like we've arrived at Downton Abbey. So it's got that sense to it. But of course, it's very relevant today. They've just restored it so beautifully.
Yeah, and the garden looks beautiful. Look at all those daffodils. That must be, for us,
got to be there in the spring. So that would be September, around September actually, to get them at their prime. But then October, November is also beautiful there. And on their doorstep again, they've got heli fly fishing. You can go biking and hiking. This takes you towards Akaroa Harbour, another beautiful place where you can go and see the Hector dolphin, which is the world's smallest and rarest dolphin that reside in this particular area. So again, rich in marine life. French colonial history. This is where the French colonized at Akaroa Harbour, and so really fascinating place and a great day trip. And as you can see, pretty scenic as well. And you can go on your e-bike along there, or mountain bike, or indeed just
So I'm a big mountain biker, and I will say it is kind of nice to have the e-bike option for families, particularly multi-generational families that all want to stay together, but somebody would like a little extra boost. So that's a nice option.
It's perfect for a multi-gen for that very reason. And now we've gone back to where we were, and your wonderful pods, Mimi, but this is the Lindis, the lodge that we talked about that blends in so harmoniously with this landscape. And that's where you're seeing the main lodge area and that incredible roof line. And here they've got horse riding trails. The stables are beautiful, but you get a wonderful place for horse riding. They'll get quad bikes on the property if you want to go quad biking. But indeed hiking and those sorts of activities are in abundance, as is the fly fishing that I mentioned earlier as well.
I saw a few pictures of their outdoor hot tubs.
Yes, just on the little the decks pods. Of the pods. The pods have a little button inside, and you press it, and within 15 minutes your outdoor bathtub that's on the deck is full to the right temperature. It's extraordinarily deep, and you just sit in there and soak, and you've got the stars above you at night. Pretty spectacular.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know about the button though. That's very nice. I wish I had a button for my house.
Super easy, so that takes glamping to another level. The pods are very small. You need to know that they're compact, but so cleverly designed. I mean, for me it's a favorite, but you need to know if your client is happy with that too.
I mean, it's just so unique, right? For me, I just like staying in unique places, and so when I look at the pod, I want to stay there. When I look at this, I just think, I mean, what a beautiful, the way that they made that just roll with the surroundings is just so beautiful.
Exactly. And actually, I haven't got it on this presentation, but a sister property of the Lindis, which is very new, and in fact it's only just opened its doors, and I can get some photos to you later, but it is called Mount Isthmus. And
Yes.
again, the architecture is a jagged roof line to reflect the mountains behind it. So that's at Lake Hawea, so one to keep an eye on. But a different concept, it's a villa, so 4 bedrooms and a one party booking at a time.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
if you, I don't even know how, do you know how many sort of lodges, not just at this level, but even like the eco tree houses we saw before, how many would I stay at if I wanted to stay at all of them? 40?
50.
Oh,
Really, we've just done this Lap of Luxury television series, and we've got 25 New Zealand properties in it. So there are an abundance of properties. Lot of fly fishing lodges, some hunting lodges that are less perhaps well known, but also wonderful experiences. There's a really wonderful range from sort of good 4-star lodges right through to the ultra luxe.
mm-hmm.
We're
And
spoiled in New Zealand.
I think you are spoiled. It's
I
very
think
easy to go on vacation there.
that's right, and I think that's one of the reasons that in 35 years we've never repeated an itinerary. It's really because we want to know about the personality of the traveller, and then we will match the places and the experiences to suit. So for a small destination, a country the size of California, we really pack our weight in these beautiful places, and you won't necessarily see a neighbour, as you can see here. So they are on large pieces of land and stations typically.
I just went and found, where did it go? I just went and found the Mount Isthmus because I wanted to show what a contrast it is for, look at that.
There you
Isn't that
are.
beautiful?
Exactly. So as you can see, they're really into architecture and design and reflecting harmoniously the sort of a synergy with the area. And that was at Lake Hawea, which is about another hour's drive north of Wanaka, Lake Wanaka,
Okay.
which you might know.
Um,
In fact, which we're getting to next.
is that
So.
okay? Yes, I got to get back to my view. Hold on one second. Enter full screen. There we go. That should work. Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on one second.
You're doing very well with all the presentations you're now mixing through.
Well, I have. It's very easy to have them all here. The question is always, okay, well, when I want them, how can I get them very easily, right?
Exactly. And flipping between all of them makes it another added trick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to try and just go like this first. There we go. And then I'll pull it up together. Okay.
Sure.
So tell us about this one. This one looks beautiful.
Exactly. So this is outside of Wanaka, which is a little getting closer towards Queenstown, so coming further south. Minaret Station, so wonderful for adventure lovers. This property is unique in that it is only accessible by helicopter. So you have to be happy to get in a helicopter. It's about a 15-minute flight in from Wanaka, or a 30-minute helicopter flight in from Queenstown. So that river that you're looking down on, that's their driveway. And you effectively fly in on your helicopter over that driveway and land on that little helipad there. They've got 4 cabins. Originally, they were tented suites. They then decided, because it was so popular year-round, because in winter they go heli-skiing and hunting, and in summer it's all about hiking and mountain biking and exploring the region and the farming there. So they took off the canvas and put on proper roofs, remembering that everything that you see in front of you that's built here has been flown in by helicopter. So really an extraordinary tale. And there are 4 cabins, and they each have a little jacuzzi outside on the deck as well. So really a beautiful property to explore.
And so if you're going to go there, how many nights at a minimum would you say, or kind of what's the average that somebody would stay there?
You need 2 nights, because you do want to have a full day on the property, whether that's to do an exploration by helicopter, or simply just be there and enjoy the property and all its walkways, which take you to these beautiful dramatic waterfalls, because as you can see, the terrain around it is very steep. And in fact, the whole property is generated by a waterfall that's permanently running behind the lodge. And, you know, you can run your hairdryer whenever you want. So it is, you know, it's an amazing little location.
More
There's
helicopters.
one of those helicopters. And
How many
there's one of those
helicopters are in
waterfalls.
New Zealand? There
Oh, I
must be
hate
a
to
lot of
think.
helicopters.
Probably as many sheep. Look, yeah, we do say that getting in a helicopter goes hand in hand with New Zealand. It just allows you to access terrain where there is simply no roads and where you just can't access. Or if you were to access it by road, it would take you half a day, whereas by helicopter, it could take you 15, 20 minutes. And the bird's eye view is just exceptional, and it really plays with our scenery, which is so diverse, and one of the reasons it's been used as a backdrop for so many films. I mean, I was just watching a very old one the other day, The Last Samurai, and it made New Zealand look like Japan. The Lord of the Rings, as many of you know, has made it look like this fantastical, magical place that doesn't maybe exist. And yet when you're here, without the cameras and without the people dressed up, you can actually see that that's where Lord of the Rings was filmed, and it's just because of this beautiful, pristine environment. So the diversity of landscapes and exploring it, and of course just a helicopter makes it pretty easy to do that.
Just a helicopter ride away.
Just a heli right away.
This looks amazing.
Yeah, so this is in the Mount Cook National Park area, but you can go, so again, you could heli there from the Lindis or Minaret Station, or if you're on a more modest itinerary, you might stay at Mount Cook itself, where the accommodation there is more sort of tramping, 4-star hotel style, but then you would get on a seaplane or a heli up onto these glaciers that are permanent glaciers. You can go ice caving, you can just go for a guided hike on these glaciers, or a scenic flight over them. So we can really play with our scenery to make it can be either sedate and just absorbing it with your eyes, or you can really play with it and take up your adventure a notch or two.
Absolutely. I'm always one to take the adventure up a notch. You know what I think is fun about working with you is, to your point about sort of the 4-star hotels, the 5-star hotels, people often ask me, you know, if they come and they don't have a budget, they're going somewhere, let's say to New Zealand, well, how much does it cost me to go to New Zealand? And I'll say, okay, well, it could cost you $40,000 or it could cost you $200,000. I'll just plan you a very different trip depending upon what kind of budget you have. But
absolutely,
quite frankly, to be in New Zealand among all this spectacular scenery, you know, it doesn't have to be the biggest budget, you know, ticket item. You can do it at a reasonable, you know, at a reasonable level. But of course, you can take it over the top with lots of helicopters, yachts, remote lodges, etc.
We will dial it up or down, and there are some amazing experiences you can have that aren't necessarily in the ultra luxe category, but can still be very boutique and private. And we're all really about just making sure we're tailoring it to an individual's price point and preferences. Yeah.
And
so,
you know what, you might remember from my one of my clients who was coming, I remember her saying to me, you know, we're spending so much money at these big lodges. When we're in Queenstown, when we're just going to be out on adventures all the time, is there a place like a Marriott that we could stay? And I said, absolutely. You know, you can sort of mix and match those sorts of things. If you're going to go stay somewhere remote, you might as well stay in a spectacular place. But if you're going to be somewhere where you're out from 8 to 5 every day and your lodging's not as important, kind of put that together.
I think that's a perfect way to do it, and a good way to describe it. And one of the other things to remember is, of course, when you're in these more remote areas, once the lights, you know, once it's nighttime, it's quite nice to be enveloped in a beautiful surrounding. But when you're at a place like Queenstown, which is in a myriad of fun restaurants to go out and explore, your accommodation might not necessarily, as long as it's clean and tidy, and you know we've got our standards. But you know, the Sofitel there is beautiful and not necessarily lakefront, but that doesn't matter if you're out exploring all day long and you've just got a nice place to go to for dinner and then just tuck back into your room for the night. This one, by contrast, you've pulled up one of our ultra luxe private homes called Piwakawaka, which means fantail. And this is in Wanaka. It looks as if you've come here by helicopter, but actually it's only a 20-minute drive from the centre of Wanaka. Wanaka's an hour north of Queenstown and is sort of a bit more of perhaps a laid-back version of Queenstown. And Piwakawaka is a private 6-bedroom villa that we can access, and it's just extraordinary and a beautiful place with tennis courts and just a fabulous building, and really for your ultralux family, perhaps a multi-gen family, it works itself really beautifully.
Yeah, that does look beautiful. Oh, yeah. Another helicopter.
Goodness me. Today from Queenstown, just Milford Sound, our fjords, of which they all sort of line up right around the bottom of the South Island, the western corner, and that's where you've got an abundance of fjords to explore. Milford Sound is the most well known. It is really because it's the most accessible. That said, it's a 30-minute flight as the crow flies from Queenstown, but it is a 4 to 5 hour drive from Queenstown. So if you were someone who didn't want to get in a helicopter, I'd actually encourage you to stay at a place called Te Anau, which is 2 hours drive south of Queenstown. And then from there, the day trip is just a 2-hour drive into Milford Sound. And then you can go kayaking or on a boat and cruise through the fjord, and just 2 hours back and you're at your accommodation.
Perfect. Not everybody wants to go on a helicopter.
That's right, and then we just play with their itinerary a little differently to make sure that they're not on any long road trips.
Is this a Via Ferrata?
This is indeed. So this is Wildwire or Lord of the Rings, because some of the scenery through here was with the Lord of the Rings. But you basically are you're strapped on and you're hiking on rungs, metal rungs, as you can see, and over these incredible swing bridges, which really abound in a lot of the South Island and in the north. Once you get on a lot of our hiking trails, there will typically be a swing bridge or two that you've got to cross. And they might only take 1 or 2 people at a time, but they're beautiful, and they do just access incredible terrain. But this is definitely for an adventure lover, and those who really want to take it to the most adventurous level. You will be on those rungs and going across waterfalls.
I'm all about that. We did our first family Via Ferrata outside of Madrid, a couple of hours in Spain, and we were a few hundred feet in the air. And then I found out from a friend of mine I made there that she'd done one in Switzerland where they were thousands of feet in the air. And now my family is doing the one and only one in Alaska this coming summer, where we're going to be thousands of feet in the air. So I'm a little terrified, but excited at the same time.
You've got to like heights to do this one as well. You want to not be too, too scared of heights. But
it's just, it gets you to places that you otherwise wouldn't get to go to, right? So that's so nice. Exactly. Oh, this is one of my favorite pictures.
Well, this is, Eicherts Private Hotel does sort of command the top real estate position in the centre of Queenstown, and they have their beautiful lakefront suites. But if you wanted to take it up a notch, this is their penthouse. So the penthouse has 2 bedrooms, this spacious lounge that extends out onto this beautiful outdoor patio, and has a jacuzzi there, and Lake Wakatipu right in front of you. And Mimi, I think that might be your shark boat in the distance that you can see there with a fine eye. But looking at those beautiful mountains, which just when the sun sets on them, they get this orange glow. It is extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And I have friends who have stayed here before and just said it was one of the most spectacular places they'd ever stayed. And I do think that I would be perfectly comfortable sitting in one of those round little chairs, watching my children run around on their shark boats off in the distance. Totally.
Exactly how I would do it. So, Look, as you can see, we really are spoilt head to toe in New Zealand, and it really is just about playing with the landscape to suit you.
Yeah, well, and here's a helicopter picture, if you could see it in the bottom left corner.
It's a little video, but you could jump on our website and take a little look at that video at your leisure, anyone who would wish to.
Okay.
It's only a
Well,
few minutes, but we can just chat since we've gone slightly over time, I think.
that's okay. I will say, I mean, we covered, I had lots of things listed that I wanted to make sure that we covered, you know, as far as adventures is always number one on my list. Water is always a big one. So you guys have oceans, rivers, lakes, waterfalls, you know, it's sort of unlimited. Amazing wildlife, amazing accommodations, unconventional 5-star over-the-top luxury down to tree houses and eco lodges. The unconventional transportation is always a favorite of mine. Of course, the helicopter tops the list there. But if you're at the top of the hill and you want to get to the bottom and there's an orb nearby, you can always use that as your mode of transportation, as well as the shark boats and the jet boats. So for active and adventurous people, mountain biking, hiking, I mean, New Zealand, in my opinion, has it all more than anywhere else in the world, I think.
We're pretty spoiled, and if there's something that you can think of, and just let us know, and we'll probably find someone who's prepared to give it a go and create it for you.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a fun overview. Great walk down memory lane for me. I can't wait until you guys let us Americans and other people back in again so we can come down to your hemisphere.
Exactly. And on that point, Mimi, I'll just say we have started with the vaccine last month, and a population of 5 million. I would like to think we could complete that within 6 months, but they're saying 9 months at the latest. So January 22 is the absolute deadline goal for the government to open up, but we're hoping we will roll out with Australia and online with them, which is the target of October.
Yes, you guys will have your nice little travel corridor bubble between the two of you. Two beautiful places to go. I wish I was in one so I could hop back and forth.
Exactly. Good.
Well, I look forward to having lots of amazing New Zealand trips to plan with you in the years ahead. And thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mimi. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.